You're listening to the Renegade Blitz, the best podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
And welcome back to the Renegade Blitz podcast. I'm Polk with Chris Ward. Brandon Walker will not be here with us for this podcast. He had some family dealings to do Saturday afternoon. The first on a Saturday in a little bit, but we're glad to have on for this Steelers versus Colts preview podcast for Monday night. Zak Keefer of The Athletic covers the Colts for The Athletic, and he just got finished with a practice from there. He's currently in the Colts media room. And Zach, thank you so much for joining us.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Man, we're doing great here on this Saturday, now afternoon. And Zach, it's been an interesting situation for Colts. Of course, they've fired their head coach, Frank Reich, and now they brought in, and also they fired their offensive coordinator. And something that was unconventional in former All-Pro center for the Indianapolis Colts, Jeff Saturday. Of course, it was lauded in the media certainly with one former head for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Bill Cowher. But after two games so far, I mean, you have to like results. The Colts won their first game, and they were in a neck-and-neck battle with former Colts offensive coordinator and now Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni. So how has the tenor for this team changed since the firing of Frank Reich?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it has. I think with Jeff Saturday, you get what you see, right? He's a former offensive lineman. He was brought in to add some fire to this team. They had lost that under Frank Reich. They really lost their way on offense. And for this team, all these issues this year, they fired their head coach, they fired their offensive coordinator, they benched their quarterback, they traded a running back. All of it goes back to one problem that they have not been able to solve, and that's the offensive line. And that's obviously Jeff Saturday's specialty. And so, that's kind of why he was brought here. At the core of it was to light a fire in that group. And they played really well 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas. They beat the Raiders at the Horn. The Raiders are a mess. They played pretty well last week against the Eagles, one of the best teams in the NFC, and lost that one at the Horn as well, but really should have won that by double digits the way they controlled the early part of that game. So I think they're pleased with what they've seen. Again, this is not a team that's headed for the playoffs by any means, but they're playing harder, and he has given them some juice the last couple of weeks, whatever that's worth.
And Zach, what was the reaction from the Indianapolis media when it was announced that Jeff Saturday was going to be the new head coach for the Colts? I know when Adam Schefter tweeted out, I had to check to see if it was a fake or real account and everything. And what was the reaction to like Joe Thomas and Bill Cowher? I know even people in the Pittsburgh media, like they kind of thought Bill Cowher was kind of like out of line there because like they kind of thought it was like ironic that he was criticizing the Colts of hiring Jeff Saturday, but then he just got a job on CBS with like no media, experience.
Yeah, I mean, at very initially, everybody was as stunned as everybody else, right? I mean, he wasn't even on the staff. He had been consulting very casually with the team the last couple of years, but by no means was he here every day in the building like a lot of the other coaches that were bypassed for this interim job. But to be honest, it really started to change for me and a lot of people around here after the first press conference and then after his first practice. He really won over the team for whatever that's worth that first week, and they really started to buy into him. And then it became not an out-of-the-box hire, not a ridiculous gamble, more of just a unique hire, right? It's not typical. It's not what we would expect. But again, this is a guy that played 13 years here. He's in the Ring of Honor. He played with Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison and Edgerrin James and Bill Polian and Tony Dungy. Those are the 5 Hall of Famers that he listed. He knows what good football looks like, and they're really trying to reach back to that. And I know you guys know that in Pittsburgh as well, kind of grab those glory days. And that's what they're trying to do here. And he's obviously the guy that Jim Irsay thought would come in and remind these players what it means to wear this uniform and find something akin to that again.
when I think of the Indianapolis Colts, I think of great quarterback play growing up, seeing Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck for his time here before he decided to call it quits due to the offensive line issues that perspective seemed like it was fixed for a long time in the Colts, especially starting those last 2 years with him. And it's been a mixed bag. Phillip Rivers had a great 1 year, but he decided to call it quits after that. And then the Carson Wentz experiment last year. And now Matt Ryan, and for one game, Sam Ehlinger before the coaching staff change has gone through. This offense seems like stuck in the mud, much similar to the Pittsburgh offense. But in these last 2 games, can you tell us what has changed with the Colts off? Because even as I take a look at some of it, it's still very much in the bottom. They're 31st in points per game, which is right behind the Steelers, who are 32nd.
Yeah, you guys have been watching a bad offense up there. We've been watching a bad offense down here. And like I mentioned, like this whole season, everything goes back to the offensive line. Like highest paid unit in the league, $41 million against the salary cap this year. You're paying a left guard $20 million. You're paying your right tackle $70 million deal. Your center's getting $10 million plus a year. You expect that line to dominate. That was what they sold Matt Ryan on when they brought him in from Atlanta. Like, we're going to protect, we're going to give the ball to JT, and we're going to work. We're going to make this work. And it's just fallen apart. They don't have a left tackle. They don't have a right guard. They've given up 40 sacks this year, which is the most in the league. They're on pace to give up 61, which is the most they've given up since 1997, which is the year before Peyton Manning showed up. So that's just kind of a glimpse into the problems right now. And for me, like, I'll be crystal clear, this game for me on Monday night comes down to one group. It comes down to whether the Colts can protect Matt Ryan against this Pittsburgh front, which is really good, not just on the ends, as you guys know. I really think TJ Watt could really do some damage on Monday night, and Hayward's done damage before, and it's not just one guy, it's the whole group. They're going to have a field day if the Colts don't block. And if the Colts don't block, this is going to be a Pittsburgh win. Mark my words.
And how has Jeff Saturday helped with the offensive line and the run game? I know Jonathan Taylor went off against the Raiders. I think he had 147 yards rushing. He had 147 yards rushing. How's Jeff Saturday come in and help that offensive line and run game?
Well, he came in and he called them out and just undressed them early on in their first couple of practices and called out players in front of the team, which is not something that had happened before. And they responded. Now, the one caveat is the Raiders are terrible. Their defensive line is terrible outside of Max Crosby. And so you weren't sure if that was a mirage or not. And it turned out it was, because they gave up 4 sacks against Philadelphia, and the Eagles just owned the trenches late in the game, and the Colts couldn't protect. And on the other side, they couldn't finish off with their pass rush. So I think Jeff Saturday has helped with the offensive line, but he's not a miracle worker, and he's not going to magically just pull Anthony Costanzo out of retirement to play left tackle. Like I said, they're starting a rookie third-round pick at left tackle. They're going to stick with Bernhard Raimann, but he's going to give up his plays, and that's been a big problem. And when you have a quarterback who's not mobile like Matt Ryan, it just leads to disaster. And so if you can't protect, it's just not a good way. And points are hard, and drives are hard, and first downs are hard. And I know you guys are watching kind of the same thing in Pittsburgh right now, but it's really hamstrung the entire season, their ability to not protect on the left side. And then they don't have a right guard either. And that's just been a big problem.
But one thing, this is so much of Ravel's Colts offense in the Steelers offense. It's kind of insane. But they have young talent at wide receiver that could potentially change stuff out with that. Paris Campbell, Alec Pearson. The big one for me is Michael Pittman Jr. And it still shocks me that Michael Pittman Sr. has a kid in the league. But I get just talk about the Colts receivers. Going with Matt Ryan's been more about the receiver's ability a little bit compared to him. He goes as far as that receiving group is. How have they supported Matt Ryan as a quarterback?
This is actually a good group. And it was our biggest question entering the season. Paris Campbell had not stayed healthy. Michael Pittman was the guy, but who was the guy behind him? And they got this rookie out of Cincinnati named Alec Pierce, who's really stepped up at times. He had a game winner against Jacksonville about a month ago. But the key is, can they protect? If they can protect, Matt Ryan can find these guys. They can move the ball around, and they can do a lot of stuff. They can get tight ends in space who can get some yards after the catch. So it almost feels like the guy who's getting the short end of the stick is the guy who you mentioned, Michael Pittman Jr., who's every bit a number one receiver, who's probably a Pro Bowl receiver if he had the same quarterback 2 years in a row, which he hasn't. 3 years into his career, he's played with 4 different starting quarterbacks, and it'll probably be 5 at some point next year. So this is a capable receiving group. If they can protect, Matt Ryan can deliver the ball quick and accurately. But again, they can't dial up long throws because they can't protect long enough, and they can't get the going consistently enough because they can't create the holes. So everything is kind of goes back to the offensive line. But if they do protect against a very good Pittsburgh Steelers front, they will open some things up for those guys.
And moving to the defensive side of the ball, the Colts have played really well against the run this year. I think they're second in the league in yards per carry allowed. DeForest Buckner, a big player up there on the front. Yannick Ngakoue is also having a pretty good season. How do you see the Colts matching up against the Steelers' offensive line and run game, which has struggled for most of the year? They played better the last 2 weeks in regards to the run game, but how do you see that matchup playing out?
Yeah, one of the most overlooked storylines, at least in Indianapolis this season, is how well the defense has played. Gus Bradley's unit's been terrific. And the problem is there's no reason to talk about it because the offense has been so bad. That's the reason they're losing games. Defensive line's been great. Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner are playing at Pro Bowl levels. And Ngakoue's had some sacks. He's coming off his best day. He tore up the Eagles for parts of that game last week. I don't think Kwity Paye plays this week. He's the other defensive end. He's got an ankle injury. The linebackers, even without Shaq Leonard, have been terrific. Zaire Franklin, E.J. Speed, Bobby Okereke. And Gilmore in the back end's been outstanding, probably a Pro Bowl level. He's won 3 games at the end with pass deflections. So I like the Colts defense right now against this Steelers offense as much as the Steelers have struggled. The problem is, can the Colts move the ball? But on defense, they're going to make things hard for the Steelers.
Yeah, one of the things that has been really huge for the Steelers in terms of moving to the future is Kenny Pickett. And the last usually has not thrown an interception. But, of course, anytime that I see Stephon Gilmore, I think he terrorized the Steelers and really, in general, most of the league with the Patriots. How is that secondary? I mean, I'm taking a look at it. Kenny Moore's always been there a little bit, and they have Malik Hooker, and now they have Rodney McLeod here now. So how has this secondary been the key to some of this turnaround for the Colts in the last 2 games? You mentioned pass.
Yeah, Gilmore's
has there been also more?
Gilmore's been terrific. The one thing you didn't hit on is the fact that they haven't turned the ball over like they did a year ago. Last year they had 33 turnovers. A lot of that was Darius Leonard, Shaq Leonard, and he's not played this year besides 74 snaps. But that's the difference. They were second in the league in turnovers last year behind the Dallas Cowboys, and they just haven't been able to turn the ball over at that rate. But they're still a very good defense. You mentioned Rodney McLeod, who they kind of picked up off the scrap heap, gave a veteran minimum contract to from the Eagles. He's been terrific, and you guys will see this Monday night. Like, he doesn't necessarily fill up the stat sheet, but he just makes smart, tough plays. And he's a guy that's just willed his way into the lineup, lost the starting job to start the season to a rookie, and now they can't take him off the field. So McLeod's been good. Gilmore's been great. Not a lot of questions in the back end. Like, they've just been good. The question is whether they can finish at the quarterback. They can get the sacks, not just quarterback hits, but the sacks. But they'll make things tough on Pickett, especially Gilmore. He's never out of place. It's really fun to watch an elite corner work like him, and he's just terrific. Against those Steelers receivers, that's going to be really fun to watch. But the Colts, the pass rush, sometimes it can look really, really good, and sometimes it just absolutely disappears. Now, that's going to be the question going into Monday night is not just can they get to the quarterback, can they get home and finish?
Zach, do you have a prediction for the game? You think it's going to be a defensive game? Both offenses are really struggling. That's where I kind of see the game going.
Yeah. Again, I can't simplify this enough. It's got to come down to the Colts offensive line. I'm not sure how much I'm buying that group right now. TJ Watt could have a field day. Hayward could make things really messy for Indianapolis. If they can hold up, the Colts are going to win. I really believe that. If not, can the Steelers score? Like Pickett doesn't they're not moving the ball very well. They're not scoring very well. I'm going to go with the Colts by 3 because I still think they can score. And the reason being 28, Jonathan Taylor, he's still really good. If they can just give him a little bit of breathing room, he might be able to do something. But again, I don't think we're going to see a lot of great offense on Monday night.
Yeah, this seems like a game that's going to be the Thursday night Amazon Prime-esque Monday Night Football game at this moment, at least at this. I kind of have a lot of seeing the Colts, I'm going to tell on myself 2 weeks ago, whenever I heard about this Jeff Saturday hire, I immediately said that if the Steelers lose this game, this might be the first time that I utter the 3 words about a head coach for this team that gets uttered a lot on the internet, but I haven't said it. And I was like, I might get close to it, but looking at this Colts team, there's substance to them, but I still got to choose the Steelers over this. I'm going to say it's very close, 21-17. I think they get an interception off Ryan and someone returns it back. I still don't trust this offense, even though they did manage to put up 30 last week.
This is a crazy stat, and you guys have watched a lot of these games. Since the Colts moved to Indianapolis in 1984, the Steelers are 17-3 against the Colts. And it's not like the Colts are the Browns. It's not like they've been losers for 2 decades. I mean, they had Manning and Luck and went to the playoffs and won 115 games in the first half, in the first decade of the 2000s. That's a crazy stat. 17-3. Colts haven't won against the Steelers since 2008. And Jeff Saturday was the center that day, and now he's the interim coach. So for 2 really good AFC teams over the years, the Steelers have absolutely owned this rivalry.
Yeah, that's a pretty crazy stat. I think it's 7 straight wins the Steelers have over Indianapolis. How long have you been covering the team? Have you covered all those 7 straight losses? Or
I've covered a lot of them. Yeah, I lost track. I've been to Pittsburgh a bunch of times, watched Roethlisberger put 50 on them one day. So I've covered a lot of those losses, yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you covered the playoff game in 2005. The Steelers.
No, but that's a game we don't like to talk about.
Yeah, memorable game, in Steelers Colts history and everything. But because Pat McAfee from the Pittsburgh area, so I was wondering what was it like covering Pat McAfee and what he's done with his show and everything, and his media outlets really grown over the years.
Yeah, he was a blast then. He's a blast now. Still lives in Indy. He was exactly what you think. You never know what you're going to get with him, but he was not like a punter when he was here. He was a lot of fun to talk to interview, to watch play. He had that big pass against the Steelers on a Thanksgiving night about 6 or 7 years ago, if you guys remember that. But he was a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I think he did
another thing that kind of echoes off of that. He mentioned his dealings with Chris Ballard, the former Colts GM, and that's another thing I want to ask. What else are the changes that could possibly go with the Colts in the future? Because I imagine this seems like, all right, after 3 quarterbacks not exactly working out due to the summer rain, one just not panning out, the other seemingly is on the road and not panning out. Will there be wholesale changes in Indianapolis?
Yeah,
in addition
totally
to that
legit
coaching
question. Jim Irsay has said publicly that Chris Ballard will be back as general manager. I'm not ruling anything out. I've learned that this season. Jeff Saturday is the interim coach, for goodness sakes. I'm not ruling anything out. We'll see what happens. I would lean towards no in terms of changing the GM, simply because I don't think Irsay wants to start from scratch. I don't think he wants to tear this down and build it back up. There are some good pieces here. Now, they need to find the most important piece, being a quarterback. But that would be my gut in terms of what Irsay decides to do in the next couple of months. But, again, there have been a lot of curveballs so far, and there'll probably be a couple more before this is all over.
Chris, you got anything else you want to add?
I'll just give my prediction. I think it's going to be an ugly game, and I'm going to have the Colts winning 16-13 just because I think it's going to be tough in that environment. I'll just say, like, Kenny Pickett throws an interception late, and, that will seal the game for the Colts. But that's pretty much it. Thanks. We really appreciate you coming on, Zach.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the game Monday night.
Yeah, definitely. You too. We'll see you. Take care.
That was Zak Keefer of The Athletic. He's the beat reporter for the Indianapolis Colts. And Chris, a good podcast here coming off of us doing high school sports yesterday. Got my first taste of action in Acrisure Stadium, right next to the Tony Romo green room and the where they sit all the TV sets. Someone left a pencil, in case you're wondering. If you were at the Saints game and you missed a pen in the TV well, you lost a pencil and a pen. So just let you know, the window was closed.
Yeah, and
it was yesterday. And congratulations, all the high school teams out there, the 1A champions, the Union Scotties. I have to give a shout out to Don Rebels for that one. They defeated Bishop Canevin 26-0. My alma mater, Steel Valley, won. Finally, Ray Brazo can hoist the championship up. The 3A game, the Bell Vernon Leopards won that. And, of course, the 4A game, the mighty Aliquip Equips, home of so many greats from around this area, from Ty Law, even seen Darrell Rivas on the field. And there was rumors that Charlie Batch was around the area, but I did not see him. He might have been in a press box. But regardless, it was a great day of football.
Rivas was at the game?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Rivas
that.
was on the sideline. I looked over. I was with one person for a trip. I was like, that's Darrell Rivas.
Well, I didn't know
I
that.
wasn't going to be a fanboy at that time. I wasn't going to be a fanboy in a photo. I don't do that.
Does he have a relative on the team, or he was just there to support the team?
I couldn't tell you about the former, but the latter, it's the Quips, man.
Yeah, it's
everyone that's connected with them is going to be down there.
Did you mention Bell Vernon?
Yeah, Bell Vernon. Yeah, Bell Vernon won. They won their first championship since 1995. So
it
was a nice day.
Quentin Martin, he's gonna be good. I think he's something special.
The first 5-star prospect in this region in a decade. I think the 5-star project that prospect, was Tyler Boyd. Might have been Tyler Boyd. Not exactly
I know
sure.
He's projected to be the highest recruit since Terrell Pryor, class of 2008. But
it might have been. Who knows? Still a lot to be done with there as everyone moves on to state.
What was Russell Shells?
What's up?
Was he a 4-star?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember either.
If you know, tell us in the comment section or tweet us an angry tweet.
What the old high school football gurus let us know. But also, thanks for Zach for coming on. We didn't have someone on for the last 2 weeks. It's sometimes a little bit hit and miss trying to get beat reporters on. They're busy, obviously, and it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, it's not like that first year for us.
Yes, especially around Thanksgiving. So we really appreciate Zach taking the time to come on.
We'll try to do better with that, because it seems that at the moment, the Fridays for the rest of the season, who knows what happens on seems like available for us to do stuff again as the high school, at least district coverage. Who knows? There's possibly a state champion, a state playoff game on the horizon for me. We'll be rooting for Westinghouse over Farrell, which is happening right now as we record this podcast, and we hope to have you back for our recap podcast. Brandon Walker should be with us. I believe he's covering Penn State right now. We're about to get ready to cover Penn State. So that's why he was a little busy in addition to a family thing. But regardless, it was a great podcast here. That's Chris Ward. I'm Ty Polk. You've been listening.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on renegadeblitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.